Hello, everybody. Welcome to Traction Ag. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Barbara Boyd, and I'm on the customer success team. And today I'd like to show you some features in our agronomy program. So today I'm going to be working in our professional agronomy program. And you've noticed that we have basic agronomy for our growers and professional agronomy for our service providers. The differentiator between these, if I go into my agronomy dashboard here, is I have the ability, and actually a better place to show you is actually in my field ops. So if I go to field ops for the professional, you have the ability to do multiple growers within your system. A grower doesn't need that, so they're limited in that functionality. To get started in agronomy, we have some options for you: lab accounts, sample events, target samples, and recommendations. So let's dive in and figure out what all these features do for you. So getting started, I would like to start with lab accounts just to get them set up, because then I can put them into my sample events and my target samples and my sample events specifically, have those lab accounts ready to go so that when I'm doing lab check-in sheets and everything, they're there. So if I'm creating a new lab account, I just come over. And what I want to do here for a name is, if I'm a professional applicator or professional sampler, I want to make sure that I distinguish what that is. So I may do a farm as well as a lab. So in this case, I'm going to call it Demo Farms and Acme Labs. And that way, when I'm out in the field, I know exactly what account I'm looking for, right? And what that account is gonna tie to. Lab account name, that's who's gonna pay for the results. So if the account is actually tied to Demo Farms, I'm gonna choose Demo Farms then in that case. And what is their account number? In this case, we'll just put an account in there. Contact name is gonna be your contact with the lab. So whoever you're working with. And then for test packages, this is where you can distinguish to the lab what you're looking for. So if I'm doing a test package of, say, an S2 package, but maybe I want to also tell them, hey, I've done a sample depth of 6 inches. So you can see I've already got that in there. It kind of defaulted to that. So I'm going to choose that package for this account. I may say, well, in some cases I'm doing 8 inches, some cases I'm doing 6 inches. So I could set up 2 accounts, one with 8 inches, one with 6 inches. And I'm going to save and close that. So now my lab account is ready to go. Let's talk target samples next. So if I've got historic samples coming in from another location, so I want to keep going back to the same sample sites over again, we would set those up as new target samples. So let's go ahead and do that. When I click on that, it's going to ask me, okay, what grower do you want to put this under? So I'm going to use my barb test, my farm, and my field. So it shows me my field, and I'm going to upload my historic sites. So coming in here, I've got my file already ready to go. I drop it in here and I apply, and there are my historic sites. Now, let's say historically, maybe we need to add a site or we want to move a site. You've got features over here where we can do that. If I want to add a site, I can easily do that. And then just cancel that. If I want to delete that site, I can now take it away. If I want to move any of those sites, I can do that as well. But let's say I'm ready to do that, and I'm going to call this historic sites. Now remember that because we are going to be seeing that later here in the field app as well. So I'm going to save and close that. And now I've got those target sites ready to go as well. Then we've got sample events. So what's the difference between my target samples and my sample events? Aren't they kind of the same thing? Not really. So target samples are going to be a historic record of where we've been sampling. Sample events turns it now into a sample event for the app to find it, go sample it, and also receive the results back from the lab. I'm not going to get results back into my target samples. So we want to turn that into a sample event and have it ready to receive those results. In sample events, I can easily create, so let's say I don't have any historic sample events for a field. I can easily come in here. Again, you notice it looks very similar to what we did before. I'm going to choose my field, and I can go ahead and set this up for sampling as well. So in this case, let's go ahead. I could either, just drop some points, or I could lay this grid. Okay. Right now it's defaulting to a 5-acre grid. Let's say I want to change that and do a 2.5-acre grid, and go ahead and apply that. And it'll go ahead and drop those sample points in there. Again, you've got those same features that we had before. If you want to come in here and move these around a little bit, you can do that, whatever that looks like for you. And then here's what I was referring to before. We've got our lab account. So here's that Demo Farms Acme Labs that I created before. So I'm going to put that in there and save and close that. So there it is, ready to go. But let's go back to that a minute, and let's look at these share features. So as I'm sharing, I have the ability to mail this out. So I can set up an email address, and I could do the boundary as well as a report of this field. It will also do my points as well. We can download those. If I want to include the field boundary, I would have that active. If I don't, turn it off, whatever that looks like, and it would go ahead and download those for me. Or I can print at this point, and this would give me a map of my field or my lab check-in sheet. So let's quick look at this. So as we get into the lab check-in sheet, this is what you're going to turn over to the lab. And you can see by setting up my account and choosing that in my sample events, I now have my account information, my account number. I'm telling them, hey, I need the S2 package with a sample depth of 6 inches. My sample IDs are ready to go. It's created my event ID. This is the important part for the lab. So when the lab gets this, they have the option of either just manually taking this lab sheet. If they're hooked up to our API, they can also scan this QR code and bring that in as well. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over into our field app. We are going to open up Traction Field, and let's go back out to our main menu here. So here's our opening menu within Field. We've got the Home tab that kind of lets us know, okay, here's our sync status. We've got Farms and Fields. If we had sampled any jobs, we'd have paused jobs coming up, finished jobs, anything like that, but we could go right into collect a sample. So if I'm ready to sample, I can just go ahead and tap on that. At this point, what it's going to do is it's actually going to look a little bit in terms of where you're at related to the list of fields. And so I happen to be closer to my home field. And so that one comes up first, but that's actually not the one I'm going to sample. I'm actually going to go to this field 48. And if I click on that, it's now asking me, okay, what do you want this sample event to be? Do you want to use freehand, which would be manually placing points through as you go along? Do I want to use my target sample layer, or do I want to lay a grid for this field? So if you recall, field 48, we actually did that target sample layer. So you notice up at the top, my historic sites is coming in. So this is the layer that we imported into Traction. It's here ready to go in the app. So I can use these historic points to get started. As we get started, we've got some sampling options. If I don't like the way that these labels are coming in, I can turn these off and it will take those away, and I can start over from one and label those however I want. So even though we've got this historic layer coming in with the points, we can renumber them the way we need to. And then we've got this max distance to feet. Now you are going to see some things happening as I sample this because of the max distance. I'm not close to this field, so a message will come up as I'm sampling. And we'll go ahead and apply that. And then we just hit start sampling. So this is actually going to take this target sample event, which I told you cannot be sampled or cannot receive samples, but it's now turning it into a sample event so that I can get the results back into Traction and I can sample it. So it easily, with just a couple clicks, you can turn that into a sample event and keep going with it. So we are going to go ahead and sample this. So you notice that if we're outside that maximum distance, it is asking me, do you want to mark at the target location, mark at my current location, which would take your current GPS, or mark a new location. What that does is it takes your GPS, but it also allows you to edit the sample name that you have for that point. And so with this, we're just going to keep going. Now, what's really nice about this too is, let's say all of a sudden a rain event comes up and I'm unable to finish this. I could hit this pause button up here and I could say pause event. And that would show up then in my pause events, and I can come back when I'm ready to continue sampling this field. But at that point, I'm going to cancel this because I do want to see this. We're going to look at this again when we come back into Traction to see this. So I'm going to finish this event. You know, it's telling me, okay, you finished this event. We're going to call it today's date. If I wanted to rename that at this point, I could. I can also change my lab account if I wanted to, but notice you get to set your lab account. So there is our Demo Farms Acme Labs that we created. So we're going to go ahead and choose that one, and we're going to hit save. And that job is now finished. It's going to show up when we go back to our URL. You'll see it in our sample events. And you can now see it showing up in our finished jobs. If I wanted to choose a different field, I could hit the plus down here. And we had that along highway that we set up. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to set it up new in here. So I'm just going to choose this grid option to show you that you also have the ability to set these up within the app itself. So this app can work independently of Traction. If you didn't have, you know, if you're starting out, you don't have those target IDs that you want to use and things like that, and you just want to start from scratch, you can easily come in here and apply your grids as well. So 2.5 acre grids, we apply it. If I need to move it, I just kind of tap on our screen and we can kind of move the screen around as we need it and as we want it to place those points. When we're ready with that, we can hit go and it's going to go ahead and lay the points. At this point, I can choose my sampling options and start sampling here as well and just keep going. So with this, I am going to pause this event. And you can see now that that is showing up in our paused list. But let's go back to Traction. Let's go ahead and refresh. And notice we now have a field 48 coming up. So that was our historic sites that we did. We now have those points coming back in saying we've sampled it. And now we are just waiting for those results to come in. So what happens at this point? So you've taken your samples, we've done the lab check-in sheet, we've given that to the lab. Now what happens? So within Traction, we have set up some connections with some of these labs. And if you want to find out who we are connected with and compatible with, go out to our website. It will show you the list of labs that we're currently working with. If you don't see your lab there, please call into our success line and we're more than happy to start working with that lab and getting compatible with them as well. So once the lab does the results, what you want to watch for is this results area right here. So you notice I've got a green check on this field. That means I've got results in. So we're going to kind of go into this field right now. And you can see I've got results showing up for this field now. So we've got some of our soil nutrients showing up. We can scroll through those and see what those are doing. If I wanted to get a listing of those, I can come into the print function. And now you see, not only do we have map and lab check-in, but now that our results are in, we've got this nutrient results table summary. So kind of in a, you know, just a tabular format of our results. And then we've also got the results maps. So we're going to do these maps and show you those soil test results interpolated. So we're going to cancel out of that. But not only Once those results come in, do I get that information? But I can also now see this new recommendation button. So I can come in here and make a recommendation now based on those results. What will happen with the new recommendation is any university equations that are available will become visible to you. Those are public equations, so those become visible. If my lab has submitted equations as well, those will become available as well. So in this case, Acme, they have an equation in here. Test equations ABC is another lab format. And then we've got these university equations. So I'm actually going to do a university equation. We're going to use this Hunt University. We're going to choose corn. And then you can see we also have to choose our elements. So I want to run PK, and I'm going to run some lime as well. And then we go to next. Within those equations, some of those equations may have manual values. So in this case, it's asking us, okay, well, what do you think the yield goal is going to be for this field? So in this case, we could set a manual yield goal if we wanted to, or we could use the default that had come in. So I'm just going to stay with the default. And then what we're going to want to do is choose the product that we're going to use to meet these nutrient needs. So in the case of my phosphorus, I want to use MAP and potash, and then of course lime. Now, if I did not have a product showing up in here, I could do a new product. So let's say I want to go with maybe a lime 80. And I can go ahead and set up solid application units. So, you know, how am I going to apply this? Am I going to do it in pounds? Am I going to do it in tons? How is that going to be applied? So let's say we're going to apply in pounds, but our inventory is normally tons. So we'd put that in there. You know, what's the cost of that? And then if you want a default rate, and then what's the percentage? So we said lime 80, so I'm going to say 80%. Notice we do whole numbers instead of percentages. So you want to put that in as a whole number, and you'll go ahead and save that. And then that pops into my product choice. A nice new feature that we've added is this button down here. This is our product constraints. So if I open this up, what I can do is I can set min rate, max rate, and switch rate, and then also rate per unit. So in the case of this, let's say for my lime, my controller needs it in tons to the acre. What I can do is switch that to tons to the acre, but these are showing more like pounds. So we're going to want to switch this. So I'm going to change these rates. So my minimum is going to be 1/4 of a ton. My max rate, let's say we don't want any more than 5 ton. My switch rate, I'm going to leave that at 0.25. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with a switch rate, what this is a kind of a rounder. So by setting it at 0.25, it's saying any values under 0.25 round to my minimum. Now, it's going to hold the zeros, but if you want zeros to then also round to the minimum, you would put a switch rate of 0 in here and leave your min rate at 0.25, and it would round everything up to that 0.25. I'm going to leave these as they are. And then I've got the option to either apply that once or apply and save. So if I just want to run it for this recommendation, I don't want it to save kind of as a default for other recommendations, I'm going to say apply once. So I'll do that and then hit next. And at this point, it's going to formulate our recommendation. And now you can see the maps. And notice now this is coming in like my lime 80 is showing in tons to the acres, the min max rates and things like that. So it's done the conversion on that for you. If I like what I see here, then I'm going to want to save this recommendation. So let's call it demo recommendation and save it. Then I go to my recommendations tab. And there's my demo recommendation file. So I can click on this, and right here's my export RX. I can choose, let's say, I'm not going to apply lime at the same time I'm applying potash and MAP, so I can turn my lime off and just export out my potash and MAP. Do I want all my products in one file, or do I want one file per product? I'm going to leave both products in one file and choose export. And at this point, it will export a shape file out ready to go to that controller. Again, we have the sharing feature. And so I can come in here and I can print out a report. I can do my load sheet or do the maps of these applications. So let's look at our load sheet. And this is just going to be a tabular form again of those rates. And we'll close that out. And within Traction, if I want to take this all the way, if I'm a grower and I want to take this all the way, let's go into our field ops for a moment. So within my field ops, I could come into field records, and let's take a look at this dairy farm that I've already got. You can see that I logged a field record for a MAP and a potash application. If I click on this, you can see details of the field record I did. So in this case, it's showing that I made an application and the amounts that I applied. Also, because I've got the pricing and everything in there, it's showing me the amounts. If I go into products and go to fertilizers, and let's click on map. By entering that field record now, it's showing my inventory. So I had a beginning inventory of 10 tons. And now because of that application, it's showing me reducing my inventories. So not only do you get to, create that recommendation, but you can take it even further and create field records using it, and show the accounting. And then I can show on that field, I can show the profitability as well. So I know we've covered a lot of topics here today, and you may want to get into, greater detail on some aspects of what we've covered. So please feel free to reach out to customer success. We are always happy to do a more in-depth demonstration with you, walk you through any of the features within Traction, and always here to help. If you need help getting data into the system, whatever that looks like, we're here to help. So I appreciate your time today and want to thank you for using Traction Ag.